Welcome to the On Brand podcast, the show where we dive into branding, marketing, and living life on brand. I'm your host, Jessica Carr, a marketing strategist with over a decade of experience helping businesses of all sizes amplify their impact and connect with their audience. Together, we'll explore actionable strategies, inspiring stories, and the latest trends to elevate your business and personal brand. Whether you're an entrepreneur, a creative, or someone ready to make bold moves, you're in the right place. Let's do this. Hi, Debra. Thank you so much for joining me today on the On Brand podcast. We actually met at one of my favorite networking events in Phoenix. And from the beginning, I just thought you were such a delight. You are so amazing and so full of wisdom, and I am so captivated by you. I'm so excited to have you on here today. This is going to be so good. To get started, I would love for you to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit more about you.
Oh, well, hi, Jessica. Thank you so much for the warm welcome. Yeah, I think a little bit about me. I am here in North Phoenix. I'm a single mom, and my background is my family's from Nigeria, and we've moved around quite a bit in my life. As I was moving, I was looking for something, but it only was in the past few years that I actually understood what I was looking for, which is genuine psychological safety, which I define as the ability for me to go somewhere and feel safe to be myself, just to be truly all of me and not hold large percentages of my personality or my thoughts or expressions back. I ended up here in Phoenix, I'd say about 8 years ago. I love it here.
Thank you so much for that introduction. I remember we talked about this before, and psychological safety is a big thing for me as well, not only in the work environment, but in my relationships, both platonic and romantic. I'm so glad that we're talking about it more. So, the first question I have for you is, can you share your journey into entrepreneurship and leadership development? Like, what inspired your focus on psychological safety and DEI?
That's a great question. Thank
Yes.
you. There's a few things. So one of the things I would start with is just parental example. So my dad was an entrepreneur. He left his job when I think it was I turned 2 when he left his job. So basically most of the time that I knew him, he was an entrepreneur. And I always wanted to be like him and have my own company. And yeah, at one point I thought I was going to run his company, and I was like, I really don't want to do that because he had a hair and skin care products that he sold, and he was very successful with it. He could have been a multimillionaire many times over, but he chose the work of missionary work. He did it more on the side and part time, and didn't make it a big essential theme. Most of our traveling we did, he was working, and so it was neat to live that life where, to some extent, before the laptop life was a thing, my dad used his work to support us. Another thing is that I just realized I was a really awful employee. It took me about 10 years. I convinced myself that I could do this thing called corporate America. And then I finally just had to be honest and say, Deborah, this isn't working. This is not you. So I would say those are two big factors. And then I'd say the third and equally as important factor is that there was a message that wanted to come through me. It's funny, many people who completely unrelated people I know from different circles and different times in my life have told me I should be a preacher. And I
Mhm.
laughed because I came from ministry. But the type of preaching that they're talking about, running your own church, I was like, I don't know if I want to do all that. But there's definitely a large, what's the word, like gospel kind of energy that I bring that comes through me, that's really good news. It's really energizing. It's really about being inspiring and expansive. There's that kind of essence. And so that message has been coming. Actually, now I see since I was a child. Of course, back then I didn't see it, but now I see I've had something that wanted to come through me that was unique and that was different and that really does lend itself to some form of entrepreneurship more so than being an employee or not.
I also have realized I am a terrible employee. I've done corporate America multiple times, and there's a lot of things that I get frustrated with being an employee, and I've realized I am so much better off and so much happier running my own business. So I that's why I was giggling at that because I can definitely relate. So, what was the defining moment in your entrepreneurship career that changed how you think about leadership and trust?
Mm. That's a really good question because it really never is one moment, right? But
Mhm.
maybe there's some that stand out that you remember more. I think that we're always a conglomerate of many different things, and often we don't remember the things that actually did shift us the most, which is kind of annoying about my work too, because people are like, "Yeah, what did you do for me anyway?" And I'm like, "It's you were here, and now look at where you are."
Yeah.
So that's some of the fun of it is it's kind of like a thankless job when you're doing it well. People don't really notice when things are
Mhm.
shifting. So I would say one of the things that I remember the most was being escorted off the premises of my last job. I was a teacher. I was a math teacher in a charter school here in Phoenix. And I was being escorted off like I was some sort of criminal. And the reason for that was because I had all these math papers that I was a little behind on grading, and I didn't wanna just leave the next teacher with this mile-high stack of papers to grade, so I was trying to grade them down, and I said, "How about I kill 2 birds with 1 stone? Go say goodbye to the teachers in the lounge and finish up the grading, give it to the teacher, everything's good." So, I was technically not supposed to be there, and so no one told me this. I came in, I signed in, I asked for the principal, went to the teacher's lounge, and then got escorted off about an hour and a half later, and I'd never forgot that because it really burned into my mind that leadership can be done so much better than this. We can treat each other as humans with dignity. We don't have to dehumanize people,
Yeah.
and I'm gonna do better than this. Like, I'm going to never again allow someone to be in some sort of position where they think it's okay for them to make that kind of decision as to how they're going to treat me. So, I think that was one of the moments that I remember the most, but I
Yeah.
wouldn't say that it was probably the only defining.
What a wild scenario. Oh my
Yeah.
god, that's crazy.
Yeah.
Wait, so were you, like, quitting that job? Is that what the
Yeah.
situation was? Okay,
Mhm.
I just wanted to
I
clarify.
was
I'm like,
quitting. I'd gone through all the paperwork, and I never did anything, like, that was knowingly against their policies, and
yeah,
then there was nothing there, was not. So, it was just their way of showing their disapproval, and
yeah,
it also showed their self-evaluations as well, and that was really interesting. It was starting to step into that world of exploring why leaders do things that they do the way they do them, and having compassion for them, and also finding ways to make it easier for them to do better.
that's insane. Oh my god. Wow, I'm so sorry you went through that. That's horrible.
I can laugh at it now. I mean, it really was quite a caricature. It was a very
Mhm.
exaggerated and comical microcosm of what I had experienced in corporate America. So it wasn't really that unique, except it was just very like in a very compressed time frame, whereas I had experienced it over many years. But it was like until I got that caricature, that's when the message really landed like, oh, Deborah, yeah, you really don't belong in these environments.
Yeah.
So shift that out. Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny how sometimes when we don't belong, whether I don't know if you're religious or whether you're religious or not, sometimes people refer to like God, universe, whatever. I consider myself more agnostic than anything, but I'm very spiritual. So I say like universe, right? I feel like the universe will like give me clear signs. This is not where you belong. That's definitely a good way of looking at it. That just proved to me that I was not where I needed to be. So I'm glad that you can look back at the experience more positively than let it like eat you and let it hurt you inside. So I think it's always good to look back and be like, "What did I learn from this?" Rather than look back at it and have hatred inside of you towards that situation. We're talking about entrepreneurship here, and my podcast and what I do is I mainly focus on women because I think women are amazing. A lot of this conversation is going to be about women entrepreneurs. But what practical steps can solo entrepreneurs take to build a supportive, trust-filled community around their business, especially when working remotely or online? And I have that context of women entrepreneurs because I feel like women usually go into these solo businesses or they start with a solo entrepreneurship kind of situation first.
Mm, that's a good question. Okay. So I'm going to take a step back for a moment and just give a little bit of context. That way, my answer makes a little bit more sense.
Go for it.
So, one of the tools I use to do leadership style assessments is called human design. And in
I love
human
human
design,
design.
there,
So if
there are 6 different lines, and each
uh-huh.
line has a very unique characteristic. And The best community builders are usually line fours. They're the one people who have line four in their profile are very much about building community and networking, and they give off this BFF energy that makes them like really they're just really easygoing. And if they're pretty healthy, they're usually really kind, warm people. They're very sociable. It's very easy for them to network.
So can I
This
interrupt you real quick?
Sure,
Can we like take it even further step back? Because I know what
sure.
human design is, but listeners might not know what that is. So can we like explain like what a line four is?
That would take a long time. So all I'm gonna say is that human design is a synthesis of a lot of
Mhm,
different types of ancient wisdom. So things like the ancient Chinese I Ching, the Jewish Kabbalah, the Hindu chakra system, there's a couple other things. There's a little bit of astrology in there. There's
mhm.
also quantum physics in there. So all of it is synthesized together in a very practical set of tools that you can
Yep.
use to understand or see yourself in a different perspective, and also to understand a lot of different life cycles that you live through.
Mhm.
It's an entire body of work. You could literally get a PhD in it. It's not something that I can synthesize down right now, but it is a tool that I use for helping leaders to very quickly start to connect to, this is my strength. So one of the things I
Mhm.
look at in my leadership style assessment is what are your lines? What's your profile? If you have a 4, I'm gonna give you very different advice than if you have a 3, okay?
Yeah.
So, I'm sharing with you about the 4 being that networker to say that
Mhm.
I am not a 4. So, my advice that I'm gonna give now is based on my lived experience,
Mhm.
but it will be different if you're a natural community builder. I wanna really start with that context, that
Yeah.
way people understand my answer and know where it applies and where it doesn't.
Absolutely.
To build a trust-filled environment, the main thing that I will tell anybody, regardless of your background or your design, is you need to start building trust within yourself. So
Mhm.
trusting the different aspects of yourself.
Yeah.
So when I say the different aspects of yourself, you might say something like, part of me is super excited about this party, and a part of me is terrified because I don't wanna go up in front of other people. Those 2 parts that you mentioned, the one that's, like, super excited and the one that's terrified, they're all you, but they're different aspects of you, and they don't always agree. They're rarely in agreement about a topic. You'll have different thoughts or feelings or reactions to something, and so understanding that all of those different parts of you have very valid intentions and then honoring those is how you trust them. And
Mhm.
when you trust the inner parts of yourself, you'll start to find more people that you can trust outside of yourself. That's how it works. That's a really simple, short way. The other piece of it in terms of like practical things to do, it's personalized. Like, I don't think there's like a general piece of advice that I can give outside of learning how to trust all the different parts of yourself because
Yeah.
you're going to come into an environment and you're going to look around and you're going to say, now, who can I trust here?
Mhm.
And that's gonna come back down to what am I feeling inside, and do I trust what I'm feeling inside? Because if I do, that's always going to guide me to the people outside of me whom I can trust.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. That is so true. And I love that you bring that human design element into it because there's like main types of human design, right? I don't know if you're planning on going into that a little bit more, but I
Wait,
hope so. I
I
hope so.
love
Perfect. So I'm a manifester. And when I learned I was a manifester and I read about it, it was like the first time I felt like there was nothing wrong with me
Mm,
because manifestors are so unique in the sense that, and maybe it's unique. I think it is. Either people love you or hate you, I've found. They're either very much attracted to you or they're very much repelled by you. And I used to take that so personally because I wanted everyone to love me, right? And it seemed like if someone was very repelled by me, and my energy, the more I tried to win them over, the worse it got, the more they hated me. And so I was always like, what is wrong with me? And then I read about the human design type, the manifester, when I learned that's what I am. And I was like, oh, no, there's nothing wrong with me. That's just the energy I have. I'm very much like a go getter and try to inspire people. And I try to, people feel very much challenged, I guess, when they meet me, or I guess I get a challenge their viewpoints. And people don't like that sometimes. And that's okay because that's what I'm here to do is I'm here to shake things up and challenge the status quo. And I've just had to accept the people who are attracted to me are the people who are for me.
Mhm.
And the people who do not like me, those are the people who are not for me and are not meant to be who I'm collaborating with. And that's okay. And I've come to terms with that. And I love myself fully. And if someone doesn't like me, then I don't take it personally anymore. And so I love that you brought up the human design aspect as far as leadership and building community and whatever else, because it very much depends on you and your individual self for sure. Yeah,
Mhm.
I love that.
Absolutely.
So, on that note, what are the biggest mistakes that women entrepreneurs make when they're trying to set boundaries and foster trust in that business or foster trust in their own business?
Mm, okay. I think I'm going to be a little tongue in cheek in here and say that I
Love it.
actually think that the mistake is to think that you need to set boundaries.
Oh, that is an interesting take. I'm excited to hear more.
So, what I mean by this, I want to be really crystal clear. There are
Mhm,
different types of boundaries, but all of them, if you look up the word boundary, it's a limitation, it's an
mhm.
edge. Okay.
Yeah.
And boundary can be a fence around a plot of land. It can be
Mhm,
a line that says this is one country and this is another. We know what these are, but I don't think we ever really think about it when it comes to our interactions with other people. There's some
mhm,
things that when you set a boundary, that means you are from your mind deciding this is my line upon
mhm,
from which I will not go beyond and you are not allowed in. That's my dividing line. That is my limitation. That is where my limit is. What we end up finding though is that those set boundaries are artificial. We made them.
mhm,
So then they need enforcing.
mhm.
And so a lot of times we end up in these situations where we set boundaries and then we need to enforce them. And
Mm,
it's not fun. It can
no.
be quite tiring. Another way of looking at it instead is to honor our boundaries.
Oh.
And this is a different type of boundary altogether. It's a natural boundary.
Mhm,
So for example, a natural boundary is like a shore. It's a boundary between the land and the ocean. A
mhm,
natural boundary can be at the edge of a forest between a field and the trees. So a natural boundary is not hard and rigid like an artificial boundary is, like a fence.
mhm,
So the only thing that it really needs is just recognizing and honoring it. So a natural boundary for us could be something like, I literally just don't have any more mental capacity to listen to this talk anymore. So I'm going to leave, or I'm going to turn off the Zoom camera. Or it could be something as simple as, I need to go to the bathroom. Gonna have
mhm,
to pause this, go to the bathroom, and come back. Those are natural limitations that we have that we can't do anything about except
mhm.
acknowledge and honor them.
Yeah.
It's when we try to, like, hold it till we're incredibly uncomfortable instead of just going to the bathroom, or we're trying to listen, and we're just having a headache and we're not really retaining anything. That's when we run into trouble, and then we think we need to set a boundary, whereas in truth, we just didn't listen to what our body was telling us. And so I
Yeah.
really encourage all people, men and women, and to really think about, how do I listen to my body? Because my body is gonna be my first signal, hopefully, my first signal of I'm coming up close to a limitation here, a natural limitation. And some days I might be able to go 3 hours and not need to use the bathroom. And then other days
Mhm.
I might need to go to the bathroom 3 times in an hour. So
Yeah.
it's not like a hard and rigid thing that I need to enforce. It's more of a thing that just goes with me noticing and honoring it from moment to moment. And so when I teach people this idea of shifting away from boundary setting and moving into boundary honoring, it really starts to create a lot more freedom for them. And they find, oh, that feels so much easier to navigate because now I'm not trying to like enforce these rules that I set up a long time ago that may not be applicable to me here and now.
Yeah, I like that, and when I you say that, what comes to mind is also when you set a boundary, it's typically or at least the situation I'm thinking of right now, is it's in this moment, this is the boundary, but later that boundary will change. This isn't necessarily business-wise, but it could be applied to business. When you're starting a new relationship or a new partnership or you have a new association or a new acquaintance or something, you're going to have a different boundary with that person than when you get to know them more and you have a little bit more of an intimate relationship, whether it's platonic or romantic. As the relationship progresses, now as we get comfortable, we get to know each other. Now that we're getting to know each other more, we actually can make plans for the future as far as things that we want to do, whatever else. I think about business relationships and other contractors or people that I worked with at the beginning. We're getting to know each other. We're going to work on a project together, see how it goes. And then as we grow more comfortable with each other and each other's work, we can move that boundary and I can
Mm.
give more liberties and freedoms. And so I really like that concept because it allows that like natural flexibility.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying, and I
Mhm.
wanna just make a little bit of a distinction between
Yeah.
what you just said. There is the boundary that you are setting externally,
Yeah. Hmm.
and I'm saying where okay, so what you said, you do the same thing, but you shift the focus.
Hmm.
Now you've shifted from setting an external boundary to honoring an internal one.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah.
And they're not the same thing. They
Hmm.
look similar and they
Yeah.
can sometimes have the same outcome, but they're not the same thing. I wanna really be clear on that. And what I'm
Yeah.
always encouraging people to do is really focus more internally. A, because it just ends up becoming a lot less violent, less potentiality for violence, but then also B, it really encourages and creates the most trust that you possibly can have in each other, in the other person. And
Yeah.
so the other person doesn't feel like, wow, they just don't trust me at all. They're just like, oh,
Hmm.
no, no, no. I really like that they're trusting themselves. It's not about me.
Yeah.
And that's a journey to go through with people.
Yeah. I like that. It's almost like in that communication using those like I statements and
Mm,
bringing it back to yourself and making it more about yourself. So the other person isn't necessarily feeling defensive about it. So I definitely can see that difference. That's really cool, actually, to point that out. Yeah. That's such an awesome way to think about it and reframe it. And it brings the power back to you, which I
mhm.
love as well. Yeah.
Yeah, because there's gonna be times when you're gonna be in a meeting and someone's gonna present something and you're just gonna be like, "Hmm, I mean, logically it makes sense. It looks good
Hmm.
on paper. It seems like what I said I wanted, but I'm not feeling it."
Hmm.
What do you do in those moments? Because it's like, can you really say, "I'm not feeling it?" I mean, it depends on your comfort level with the other people,
Hmm.
but you have a moment there where you've hit up against a natural boundary. You may
Yeah.
not even have words for what it is, but
Hmm.
you know, this isn't sitting right with me and I don't like this. And we have all been in that situation where because we couldn't present a logical reason for turning something down, we went along with it, even though our gut or our emotions or we had some internal hit that said, this isn't right. I don't like
Yeah.
this.
Yeah.
And then later on, we find out, of course, hindsight, oh, yeah, yeah, I felt that. So this is a way to start to honor that in the moment
Yeah.
without, and it doesn't have to be about anyone else. It doesn't have to be logical. It just
Yeah.
means, you know what, I've just bumped up against my own limitation in this moment.
Yeah.
Maybe if it depends on your authority, but if you're like in human design, we talk about emotional authorities, need time. We need to sleep on things.
Yeah.
People who don't have that authority, maybe they can in the moment know, and they have to trust that in the moment knowing, "Oh,
Yeah.
yeah, this is definitely a no for me." But trusting that, and this is what we lost. This is the art that we lost in this last era that we've been in for the past 400 years of everything as doing everything for the greater good and doing
Mhm.
everything as a group, and we lost our connection to our own individual voices, our own intuitive knowing, and I do believe that as a gender, women have suffered that more than men have, but I think
Yep.
everybody has suffered
Yeah.
that. I think women still have the connection, but we're suppressing it. Men
Mhm.
maybe like almost lost the connection sometimes. So it's like, how do we connect back to that knowing? And this is a very, very simple practice of just honoring boundaries where we start to do that.
Yeah. That whole honoring your intuition, whatever else, that is a whole other conversation that I can jump on an entire soapbox about. So, especially with women feeling like they've lost that connection a little bit for sure. I think women have the most incredible intuition and we need to trust it more. And the more we trust it, the better off we are. And we've been conditioned to not trust our intuition and to question it. And I think patriarchy plays a big role in that. But like I said, that could be like an entire podcast on its own. So I won't go too like far down that rabbit hole. Yes. I will stand on the soapbox about that. Women often feel the pressure to be likable while leading. How can they balance empathy with strong leadership and decision making?
I'm going to add a couple words into that question. I think
Do it.
women have been conditioned to feel that they need to be more likable. I think if you just look at people as they are, it's always split. There's some women who really do need to be liked, and there's a lot of women who don't. And there's a lot of men who need to be liked, and there's a lot of men who don't. But I think cultural conditioning has made it such that many women have more pressure on them to seek being liked than maybe men do. But I really want to make that distinction because, again, what I'm about is helping people to come back to their true nature, come back to their truth in very, very simple ways. And I think there's a big difference between, okay, if you told me, okay, Deborah, I think more women have a yearning to give birth to a child, I'd be like 100%. I wouldn't add anything about conditioning because I think most women do have that biological wiring. It's a little bit different. But when it comes to being likable, that's something that society has pushed on a lot of women. I don't think it's as many as it would be if as it has been because of society. And so my encouragement for people is exactly what I'm just saying. Some of us are just naturally going to be more nurturing and more concerned about others' feelings. And I'm not going to make that wrong ever. Like, I think that's a beautiful thing. I think it's beautiful when someone doesn't want to hurt someone or wants them to feel good. The balance I always give is make sure that you're likable to yourself first, that you're kind to yourself first, that you nurture yourself first. Then, with your overflow, do that for everybody else. That's all. It's not, don't do it. If you feel naturally inclined to do it, if that is your nature, go for it. I'm not going to tell you that's wrong. I'm just going to say make sure that you started with you, that you're your own best friend first, then everybody else.
I agree with that. We've been conditioned to want to be likable. And it comes back to that same or the trope that we've heard or we've experienced where men get to be bosses, but women come into a leadership role and they're a bitch, right? Like they could do the same exact thing, say the same exact thing. And for some reason, a woman, if she's not like tiptoeing around the subject or whatever else, and she's a little bit more blunt and forward, and I've experienced this because I'm someone who's a little bit more blunt and forward, like, it's a very different reaction. My last corporate role was a big example of that. I came in to do my job and had direct reports that I was supposed to be over and everything. And because I was blunt and not like in a mean way, I was still very compassionate and whatever else. But because I was like, hey, we have a job to do, let's get it done. This is this. And they didn't like that. They didn't like that I didn't like tiptoe around things and all those different aspects. And it's like, well, we have work to do. Let's get the work done. And I wasn't trying to be likable necessarily. I was more wanting to be respected. And because I wasn't necessarily trying to win everybody over in that sense, I was just coming in to do my job. They didn't like that. And so that was definitely one of those situations that made me realize, like, maybe I shouldn't be in corporate.
So what you speak to is slightly different from what I was speaking to because you're really
Mhm.
talking about there's a few things that there's a few questions I would ask. And one of them
Mhm.
would what's already the established culture when you're
Yep.
entering in, right?
Yep.
Because that's going to determine a lot of things. It's also going to determine a lot of things where whether you're saying, okay, this is how I want people to do their job and this is how I want to do my job. It's like if they've never had that level of directness, there
Mhm.
may need to be some sort of transition provisions made. However, none of that is a reflection on you, but just
Right.
more so these are practices that you can implement for the sake of making things smoother. But at the end of the day, it always boils down to, can you go to sleep at night with how you show up? And can you feel good when you leave work that day with how you dealt with people? That's your number one.
Right.
Then with whatever you've got left over, right?
Mhm.
And you can for sure try to help smooth things over with other people. But if
Yeah,
you're doing it where you're trying to make them happy and you, by the way, are feeling like completely kicked to the curb or
exactly.
to the side, then that doesn't work. So
Yeah.
that's the hierarchy and priority that I was talking about. But then there's also these other factors that can come into play. And that's why
Mhm.
each leadership question, each leadership situation is unique. And I always like to bring in these big, beautiful principles, but then apply them specifically to what the
Yeah.
individual is facing and dealing with because each place is different. We had a really quick conversation yesterday about culture and how if you didn't thank your auntie for the bean casserole she made, you might have the repercussions of that 5 years down the line. And we were cracking up about it. But it's true. Culture is really
Yeah.
sticky. When you're dealing with someone even and that's within a family. It can be within a family, it can be within a town, it can be within a
Mhm.
country, it can be with between different countries, different languages spoken. There's so many different places where you're doing something in the genuineness of your heart to be supportive and helpful, and the other person is super offended because and from where they looking from it's an offensive thing that you did, and you're like, "Oh my goodness, give me the rule book for this." That's another thing to take into
Yeah.
consideration that you didn't mention, but could be a part of it, right? Because you
Oh,
come
yeah.
into somewhere and there's people who have this particular mindset from this particular way of being socialized, and you're not familiar with it. You could be as respectful as you know how and still highly offend them. And that could be it may have nothing to do with your gender. It just may just
Mhm.
be the differences in the ways that you were socialized and how you grew up. So these are different things that you need to take into that every leader will take into consideration, but not all of them, just the ones that are applicable to your current situation.
Yeah, I definitely didn't go fully into that situation in that scenario just for the sake of time. So there was definitely a lot of nuance there for sure. And culture was a big part of that, definitely. So they hadn't had marketing for 10 years. And I came in and right before holiday, and corporate was like, gotta have marketing. And so it definitely shifted the dynamic of the culture with that office, I would say. So, because there was more of an emphasis on that, and they weren't used to that, and they were like, "Whoa, whoa, 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 what are we doing here?" And corporate's breathing down my neck saying, "Hey, we gotta get going." So, there's a lot of factors into that for sure, and culture
And
was a
that
big part of that. Yeah.
And that's the problem. The
Uh-huh.
person breathing down the neck needs to be in the room having the
Yeah.
conversation with the people who are like, "Hey, what's going on?" and explaining, not leaving it for the new guy who's come in. So these are
Yep.
things that all of when you look at the whole big picture, there's a lot to
Mhm.
consider, and oftentimes
Yep.
it got nothing to do with you.
Right.
You're just poor middleman and that got stuck.
That's actually what happened. I was just the poor middle man that was thrown into this dynamic, and it was a whole thing. But anyways, it's fine. But going back to what you said originally with women have been trained to be likable or conditioned to be likable rather than just being their authentic selves. And I love honoring that woman's intuition and embracing how every woman is different and their experience in the world and learning from them. That's why I love having women like yourself on this podcast and talking about your experience in the world because I think it's just so incredible how we can bring our experiences and our intuition and we can all learn from each other. Especially like yourself, where you're just so full of wisdom. Women-led businesses are often more inclusive, but what are some intentional ways to incorporate DEI into the brand and business practices?
Well, let's break down what DEI is, which has been a
Yep.
recent news topic.
Yeah.
Diversity, equity, and inclusion.
Mhm.
And that means that you have more than one perspective showing up. That's
Yep.
diversity.
Yep.
You're treating people in the way that you're giving people what they need to succeed.
Mhm.
That's equity. And inclusion is you're not pushing someone away from the table. So
Yeah.
these three general ideas, just making that a practice will resolve that. So we'll address that in your business and in your brand. So if you are making sure that which I think diversity is the easiest thing on the planet to because even if you have 2 people that grew up in the same exact house, they're gonna be diverse because they have different ways
Yeah.
of looking at things and approaching things. You wanna celebrate that. So
Yeah.
when someone comes in and says, "I don't agree," you're like, "Great.
Yeah.
This is great that you don't agree. Let me hear what you've got to say about it," as opposed to, "Oh no, here we go. Here's a naysayer again." Because I'm a
Mhm.
naysayer. I joke, my name is Deborah, but I'm like the Debbie Downer. Like that's totally. That's totally where I come in. And it's always fun to see people but I make it light now. I have fun. I joke with it, but that's literally, I'm a troubleshooter. That's one of my
Mm.
roles. And there's no way around it. I'm going to call out what's not working. It's just part of how I'm wired. So that's one thing. And then also with equity, it's the only way you know what's equitable is you just got to have conversations with people. Is this working for you? Is this not working for you? Do you need this? Oh, I noticed you were struggling with that. Is there something we could do to make that easier for you? That's equity. These things are really simple. Sharing a poster or a flyer around the company and saying, "Hey, we're having this conversation on Friday afternoon. Everyone's invited. Come and share your thoughts." Here's the challenge. People can talk a good game, but then when people get into the space, they automatically can quickly tell that it's not actually a safe space. So they don't say much because
Mhm.
safety is their ability to fully express who they are, where they are in that moment. Now, of
Yeah.
course, we're always going to tailor some things based on where we are. That's normal. But when we have to really cut and clip and suppress a lot of ourselves, that tells us that environment isn't safe. The higher responsibility to me is learning how to be a safe person and to grow and nurture safety in the environments that you're in. And then meeting DEI is not hard. It's actually quite simple. It's just a matter because once you give people that space and they actually see that it is a safe space, they'll start talking and you'll get the information that you need. And then it's not about you making the decision by yourself in an ivory tower, but that you're coming back and making some of those decisions with people. Maybe not everything, but you can make some of those decisions with everybody that's part of your team or your office or whatever it may be. At least giving them the opportunity to express dissent if they disagree with something and to give their reasons why. This is what makes them more better. But I think the biggest challenge is that people don't know how to hold safe spaces. So then no one really talks. So then you don't really get an accurate, truly inclusive and diverse range of perspectives.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, with it is, like you said, a big topic right now in the media and politically and whatever else, which is really sad because study after study has shown that the more diversity that you have in a company or in a business, the more or the higher success that business will have, especially monetary wise, because you can be more innovative with your products. You can reach the needs of your audience. Like when you have people from multiple backgrounds and experiences coming together and working together on something, you can create a better product, better service, better everything. And so it is really sad that that whole DEI concept is being attacked right now and is seen as a negative thing when really it's such a positive and powerful thing. And so it's yeah, and like you said, it's not hard to do.
I mean, I think DEI programs before they were attacked, I think they weren't really working as they were want the intention was. I've always had a different angle on
Mhm,
DEI and how we actually address it than what I was seeing happening because I worked in those companies in corporate America. I was a diversity hire and
mhm.
officially so on multiple occasions, and I was really appalled with the level of disconnection between this so-called program and how it was supposed to fit into the bigger picture. And so I knew that they were not gonna be able to last in the form that they were.
Yeah, I would agree. I've also been through those similar programs in corporate. And as like my background is a woman in STEM and I've worked in tech companies. And there were so many instances where a company might have like a DEI program or a DEI initiative and it didn't quite implement as well as maybe the intentions were. So, I definitely agree with that, that there needs to be a broader conversation about how to actually create DEI programs and experiences that do actually benefit those who or I guess everybody in the company and everybody in the group or project or whatever you're working on.
Mhm.
Yeah, absolutely. How can women business owners create an environment of trust and collaboration, whether it's with clients, team members, or business partners? You talked about that a little bit with the last question.
Yeah, it goes back to an earlier question you asked. It's like you start with the trust and collaboration internally,
Mhm.
and because what happens is life is fractal. So if you
Yeah.
look at the structure of an atom and you look at the structure of a solar system, it's the same. You've got your nucleus, you've got your electrons that are orbiting around that nucleus. And so there's the proton in the center that's like the star. So there's order to the way that life patterns work. So we can either ignore that and try to keep reinventing wheels and creating new models or we can acknowledge that and work with it.
Yeah.
So I encourage people to work with it is there is a way that you lead. It doesn't matter, how many books I throw at you, how many planners and journals and trainings I throw at you. There's a natural way that you already lead.
Yeah.
And you can learn what that is, or you can keep trying to follow everybody else's kind of systems. But I think it's a lot easier for you if you learn what it is, because then you can just be yourself instead of having to try to follow these things that feel so awkward and uncomfortable and that people see through anyway. And so, how do we learn how to lead as ourselves? Is we start with inside of ourselves, leading our different parts or different aspects. And then once we get comfortable with how we lead that way, it's easier to then relate to others in our leadership and then start that process. So that's what I would say is building trust. And I'll just really quickly say that building trust is about demonstrating to the different aspects of yourself that you're not there to judge. You really do care and you're interested in their well being. So, for example, maybe there's no ice cream and you really are craving ice cream and you're having a little bit of a tantrum because there's no ice cream in the freezer and you're not able to go out and get more, and there's a part of you that's like, "This is ridiculous. Are you seriously tantruming about something that's just gonna make you gain weight anyway?" And then there's another part, "But I really wanted the ice cream." So those are 2 parts of you that are having different feelings in that moment. And it's being able to step back and say, "Okay, I hear you. I see you. It's okay for you to be upset that there's no ice cream right now. How can I be of support to you? Is there anything else that I can do that will help you to feel better? Or what else is it that you need me to know? Do you need me to know that the person who ate the last ice cream is a piece of trash because they didn't okay, I'm hearing you." Like, just letting that be what it is and creating that trust with that part of you that's craving the ice cream.
Yeah.
Then when you go to the office the next day and someone's throwing a tantrum about the printer not working, you can take the same skills that you used last night with the ice cream situation and apply it to someone else and being able to hold that same safe space for them. And
Yeah.
it's funny, it seems funny, and it's like, "Well, I'm not here to be their therapist," and it's not about being a therapist, it's just about being a human. We've lost our ability, we've lost the
Yeah.
skills to just really relate to one another in compassionate and empathetic ways. And it's not just empathy, there's a little bit more to it than empathy. There are a couple questions that we ask, but it's a very, very simple process to be able to start to create that ability for people to trust you. And it's so funny because it comes back at the weirdest times. It's never when you think you've forgotten about it, and 6 months later, you get this nomination for an award, and you're like, "What?" And it's like, "Oh, it's from the guy who was tantruming about the photocopier that you, like, helped to resolve that, and he really trusted you from then on, and now he had an opportunity to raise your name up in some, industry award ceremony, and you didn't know anything about it." And I'm not saying this to say that you do this because of that. But I'm saying it to say that the you receive back, you always receive back, but it always comes from a way that you wouldn't have expected, and that's the nature of this process. When you start to really truly build trust and safety, it's amazing where it takes you to places that you just literally cannot imagine going.
Yeah. Yeah, that's so true. Yeah, I think about that in myself and others around me, and it seems like the more that you are regulated and the more that you have done your own inner work, the more you can hold space for other people's and be that safe space for other people. Absolutely. Yeah, that's so beautiful. Thank you so much. If you could leave women business owners with one key takeaway about trust, psychological safety, and leadership, what would it be?
It I mean, it's always happening. Once you
Mm.
see it, you can't unsee it, and then it
Yeah.
just starts happening. So even from some of the things we shared today in this conversation, you probably saw something that now you can't unsee, and
Mhm.
now it's a matter of just the more attention you give it, the more it's going to keep growing, but it's already there, like, it's not
Yeah.
gone. Just as you're starting to learn how to trust yourself more, how to create safety and really trust yourself more and create safety. And it's an ongoing process. I'm still learning and peeling back layers every day. It's always there and it's never gone. You don't have to go, oh, I forgot it. Now I got to learn it again. It's there. You can be rest assured that whatever you saw is with you. And when you're ready, when the time is right, it will start to grow and blossom on its own.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Thank you so much. I think that's a good takeaway for sure. Yeah. So, where can listeners connect with you and learn more about your work? They're
So
interested in working with you and their business or their leadership or whatever else. How can they get in touch?
I just started a new Substack. I'm really excited about that. But LinkedIn is my main place to
Yeah.
connect with people. So LinkedIn/in/the real Deborah A. All one word together. So that's my handle on all social media, actually. I'm still on Instagram, even though I don't really use it that much. The real Deborah A is my handle, and you're welcome to connect with me there.
Love
And
it. And I'll put those links in the show notes as well so people will know how to connect with you or be able to easily access that.
great.
Perfect. I love it. Do you have like anything that you're working on right now for leadership and or business owners or anything that you want to just give a shout out to or bring awareness to?
Yeah. Yeah. So for companies or organizations, they can be nonprofit or for profit. There's a sliding scale. We have a VIP day that we offer where we
Ooh,
go through a team of three leaders, their leadership styles, and we go through a really cool overview of where their organization is and where it's headed and how they can really take the principles that we teach and use them in their business. That's one. And then for individual leaders, so let's say if they're a solopreneur or they just want to try it out for themselves, they can do a holistic leadership style assessment. And
mhm.
that's just I give them a beautiful 30-page report and we have,
Wow.
which is all customized, personalized. It's not
Wow.
automated. There's no AI. And we have a one-on-one 90-minute call, and I go through it with them, and then they can ask their questions, and that's something that they even have a visual storyboard that they can put on their wall and use that to inspire them when they're thinking about their marketing, their branding, their approach to things, how they're gonna lead in different areas. It's just a really cool in-depth look at their leadership.
I love that. And I think we need to do another episode where we talk about the human design more
Yeah.
because I love bringing human design to business. And so I think we need to follow up with that topic because that would be amazing.
Yes,
No,
absolutely.
that assessment sounds absolutely incredible. And as like a marketing and branding strategist, I love that. And I try to bring in those individual aspects when I'm creating like personal branding strategies. It's so important to do that. So going through that process first before going through like branding would be like so incredible. So
Yes.
yeah, that would be amazing. So I could see I'm going to encourage a lot of business owners to come to you for that first. That would be
Oh,
just
yeah, that would
epic.
be great. They're so fun, and they bring both the left and the right brain together because we do a lot of, like, analytics, but we also bring in art. I actually have an artist who brings in some, like, medicinal art, and so it's like she picks pieces of art like Picasso or whatever
Oh
that
my
are, like,
god.
designed to, like, help you connect to these, like, higher aspects of your nature in a really fun way. Yeah.
I feel
It's
like I need to do this. That sounds incredible. We're going to talk.
Yes, yes, let's talk.
Perfect. I love it. Thank you so much for being on the podcast with me today. This has been such a beautiful topic that we can go through, especially right now, where it's very much needed to help women leaders and having inclusive environments, whatever else. I think this is just such a great topic right now. So thank you so much, Deborah. I appreciate you.
Thank you. It's such an honor. It was lovely to be here with you today, Jessica.
Thank you for listening to the On Brand podcast. If you found today's episode valuable, be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with someone who'd love it too. Until next time, keep amplifying your impact and living on brand.